Your attachment style is going to determine how you relate to or emotionally bond with other people. And it's formed primarily in your formative years, in your childhood, based on the things that you experienced, things you were exposed to, things that you learned, things that you were taught, things that you observed, things that you absorbed. And there are actually 4 different attachment styles. And I did a video that's right before this one that you can watch after this that's going to help you determine which attachment style you have. But if you are someone who falls into the anxious attachment category, then chances are you also struggle with something called codependency. Now, codependency is a lot what it sounds like. It's being codependent. It's being dependent on somebody else for our emotional needs, for our sense of purpose, for our feeling valued as a human being, and being overly dependent on someone else for those things, where there really isn't much of that within yourself. And so you rely on someone else to get that. And then you can imagine how when we are relying on another person so much for these things, it creates unhealthy dynamics in the relationship and also unhealthy dynamics within ourselves, because it doesn't feel good to not have our own internal sense of self-worth, of not being able to also be there for ourselves and meet our own needs and validate ourselves and deal with our own feelings within ourselves. And the truth is, codependency is a lot more common than a lot of us realize. But once you start to see it within yourself, you can't unsee it. And it's going to help to make a lot of things a lot more clear and help you develop a deeper understanding within yourself so that you can work to break these patterns, to heal from this, and so that you can feel more free and self-reliant and interdependent in your relationships and secure in who you are. Now, codependency generally comes about if you grew up in a household with a parent who had a substance abuse issue, if they had an alcohol issue or a drug abuse issue, often if they had any other kind of addictive behavior that took them away from being consistent, from being emotionally available, from being safe for you to be yourself with, for you to be able to trust and open up with. If there was just a lot of inconsistency and a lack of cohesiveness in the family and in the relationship that you had with this caregiver. It can also come about, again, if that caregiver had significant mental health issues that would cause them to be inconsistent or unreliable for you, so that you didn't get a chance to develop that safe and secure attachment. But if you want to know for sure whether it's codependency that you're struggling with, I'm going to go through a list of really clear, really quick, definable features of people who struggle with codependency. And then if you have a lot of these, or you see a lot of these within yourself, then chances are, yep, there's some codependency going on there. And then I'll give you the next steps after you're able to identify it. The first one is that if you often feel responsible for other people's problems, someone tells you something that they're going through and you feel this weight inside of you, like you need to fix it. You need to solve it. And it might even cause you anxiety, or you're going to lose sleep over it. The next sign is you find it difficult to say no, even when you're really overwhelmed. You almost feel like you're a bad or selfish person for even the idea that you want to say no, or you feel really guilty if you ever do. The next sign is that you pretty constantly seek approval or validation from others in order to feel good about yourself. You might find yourself fishing for compliments or doing things simply to get recognized or to be validated in a public way, or even in that little one-to-one way where you're doing it just for the good job and not really for your own satisfaction or your own learning or growth. The next sign is that you really struggle to set and maintain your boundaries. Now, maybe you're one of those people that's like, I am determined to have better boundaries and I'm going to start setting better boundaries. But if your intent does not align with your internal kind of narrative about yourself and whether or not you're allowed to have boundaries and what boundaries actually mean about you or what you kind of think the consequences of boundaries are going to be, then you are not going to do it. Or if you ever do set a boundary, it comes with a lot of guilt and a lot of regret and maybe even quite a bit of fear. So when it comes to setting boundaries, we have to do the internal work in order to be able to do it on the outside and feel good about it. But essentially, you really do struggle to set boundaries. You really struggle to step into and stand up for what you need, think, or feel, and where your limits are, what you're available for, or what you're not available for. The next sign is that you really have this fear of being rejected or abandoned if you don't meet other people's expectations, or even if you don't meet your perception of what their expectations might be. And this is a lot where people pleasing comes into play, where you think that you need to do things for other people, that you can never potentially even disappoint them, that you have to go above and beyond to make other people happy, to fulfill their needs, to be there for what they want or what even you think they want. And there's this real fear of rejection or abandonment if you don't. You even feel like who you are as a person is not valuable enough for people to stick around for, that people only want you in their life for what you can do for them. But then you don't really ever ask for anything because you don't think that anyone is going to want to be there for you. The next sign is you often put other people's needs ahead of your own, even when it negatively affects you. Now, I'm not saying it's not good to be there for other people, even if sometimes it's not our first choice, but that's just what we do in relationships. Sometimes we put ourselves aside and we're there for someone else because we have this healthy interdependence, where sometimes we're there for others, even if it's not our first choice. Sometimes we allow them to be there for us, even if it's not their first choice. And there is like this element of give and take in the relationship. That is healthy. But when you find that you are always putting other people's needs above your own, and it's causing you to be stressed, to be worn out, to be burnt out, to have it has a significant impact on your self-esteem, that you often feel bad about yourself when you are doing these things and showing up for people in these ways and neglecting or abandoning yourself in the process, that's where it falls into that codependency category. The next sign is that you feel really uncomfortable when other people are unhappy, and you feel like it's your job to keep the energy up in the room, in the relationship. It's your job to make sure that people are feeling good. And if someone is not at their best self in any given moment, you kind of sense that they're down or they're off or they're kind of just like distracted or in their own world and they're not giving you their full attention, they're not fully present, that it's because of something that you did and you need to fix it. Maybe you're even that person where you go into any kind of social gathering and you feel this responsibility to carry the energy of the whole room on your shoulders, where even if you're not the host, you have to make sure that everybody is having a good time, that everybody is feeling good. And now, a little caveat to this. If you're one of those empathic people that is really good at kind of sussing out the people in the group who might not be feeling a part of it, who may be feeling left out, who are kind of sitting on the sidelines, and you're really good at bringing them in and bringing people together, that is different. That is someone who is just conscientious and aware. But when you feel stressed going into a social situation and you feel it's your job to be the one that makes sure everybody is having the best time, that is where it can become problematic. Another little subtle way that this one can show up is if you're in a social gathering and you're having a conversation with a new person for the first time, and you feel this pressure to make sure that the conversation is engaging and interesting and that you're having a really good back and forth, where maybe even the other person is putting zero effort into it, and it's almost like you're pulling teeth trying to get them to converse with you, but you feel like you have to have this great conversation with them or you failed. But you're forgetting to also recognize that it takes two to tango. And why are you working so hard to make sure that the conversation is wonderful when the other person doesn't seem all that concerned? Basically, this just shows that you take on the weight of the social and emotional experience of other people to the point that it feels stressful, anxiety producing, overwhelming. That's another sign. Another sign is that you need to avoid conflict, or you go to great lengths to keep the peace, even if it means compromising your own needs. Now, again, great to sometimes be like, you know what? I can just let this one go. I'll take this one for the team. I can go along with this. I'm okay to be flexible this time. But when you're the one always doing that, when you're the one who's like, you know what I want or what I need isn't important, or how I feel isn't important, I'll just ignore it. I'll just forget it. I'm not going to bring it up. I don't want to upset anyone. I don't want to inconvenience anyone. That is where it kind of veers into that codependency category. The next sign is that you find yourself feeling really guilty when you look out for yourself, when you take care of yourself, when you prioritize your own wants or needs or desires, even if it has zero impact on anyone else. If you're like, I'm going to take the time to rest and relax and take care of me instead of being productive or figuring out how I can help somebody else all the time or trying to get something done, you feel guilty. You feel bad. You feel like you're being selfish. The next sign, you have a really hard time asking for help. Or maybe even you fear that if you do ask for help, other people won't be there for you. You're more than willing to be there for anyone, anytime, and show up for them, but you don't think that they will do the same for you. And again, you don't want to inconvenience anyone or put them out in any way. The next sign, your moods are often dependent on how other people around you are feeling. Now, again, for those of us who tend to be more highly sensitive, empathic people, we are going to be more affected by other people's moods, by the other kind of emotional energy in the room. But with the proper skills and with doing this work on a deeper level, we can get a lot better at being able to kind of separate ourselves from that, recognize it without taking it in and taking it on and letting other people's stuff derail us. But when you struggle with codependency, you are very impacted by other people's mood or energy. And you can have yours really thrown off pretty easily if somebody else seems to be off. Maybe you worry about what are they thinking? What are they feeling? What's going on with them? Or you just sort of unconsciously get pulled down by whatever weight it is that they seem to be carrying. And you can't really separate yourself from their emotions. The next sign is that you often feel like you're walking on eggshells and worry about upsetting other people, where you kind of need to dance around things. Maybe you don't say things directly. You're really worried about accidentally offending someone or accidentally saying something that someone doesn't agree with and they're going to overtly disagree with you. You're worried about creating any kind of tension ever. And so you feel like you're kind of just walking, tiptoeing around people in an attempt to never throw them off or upset them or have them think anything that you don't want them to be thinking about you, even a little bit. The next sign is when someone has a problem, you feel this urge to fix it for them. Or you feel like you're being a bad or selfish person if you don't, if you're not right in there trying to fix their problems, trying to be there for them, trying to be that go-to person for probably too many people in your life. Now, there are going to be some people in our lives who are going through a hard time, who we want to be there for, who we want to support, who we want to check in on, who we want to create the time and space for, absolutely. But when you feel like it's like this heavy burden that you're carrying, that you almost have this urge that you have to fix it, you have to make it better for them, you have to do everything that you can, even to the point of your own self-neglect, even to the point of your own stressing yourself out, overwhelming yourself, compromising your mental and emotional and physical well-being to be there for them. Or you feel like a bad person, like you're not being caring, you're not being loving. That's where it veers into codependency. You feel heavy a lot of the time. You might even find that you go through periods of wanting to avoid everyone and everything because you have this innate kind of feeling that it's going to come loaded with some sense of responsibility, something that you're going to have to do, something that you're going to get pulled into or overwhelmed by. And so one point of it is that you want to be close to people. You rely on other people for your sense of self, for your mental and emotional well-being, for your self-esteem. But on the other hand, it becomes really overwhelming when you're taking on the stuff of other people as well. So what do? I have a free download for you that is going to help you start breaking these patterns and healing from codependency. It's called The 6 Simple Tips to Start Freeing Yourself from Codependent Patterns. And that's exactly what it is. Breaking patterns of codependency is not a one and done, but it is absolutely possible when we're implementing the steps to do so and also doing the inner work to rebuild our sense of self, to feel more secure and confident in who we are so that we're not outsourcing that so much to everyone else around us or looking to be there for everyone else in order to get that feeling of self-worth for ourselves. Make sure you get that 6 simple tips to start freeing yourself from codependent patterns. Man, I should have come up with a title that wasn't such a tongue twister. But anyways, that link is in the description below. And now let me know, do you see yourself in many of these, most of these, all of these? And if you do, please don't be hard on yourself. Please don't judge or blame yourself. Please don't feel defeated by this. The first step to changing anything is to be able to identify the problem or the issue in the first place. And so you have done that. So now you know differently. You can start to address things differently, deal with things differently, heal from things differently. So this is an amazing first step. Be proud of yourself, feel good about yourself, because now you know where to go and what to start working on from here. As always, it is so good to have you here, and please do take good care of yourself. Take good care of those around you. Bye for now.